Memory cards. They're kind of a big deal. Everything you do and everything you record and every image you take ends up on a memory card. They're kind of a crucial part of the whole process. Kind of a boring topic, but I wanted to talk about why I use large memory cards. Now, large is relative to whatever you're doing. So if you're a wedding photographer, large is gonna be very large. If you're someone who does like portraits and you go out and you shoot for about an hour, it's gonna be a very different situation. Same goes for video. So if you shoot 4K video at a high bit rate, you're gonna need much more storage than someone who, say, shoots photos. And obviously these are my personal opinions, so you do whatever you want with your business and your life. But I hope this kind of gives you some food for thought so you can make the best decision possible. One thing I've never done is I've never lost client files, knock on wood. Okay, now I've had a few close calls. One time I had a client contact me 2 weeks after I did the initial call and delivery of the images, asking for an image of their father-in-law who passed away suddenly. And I had a few photos of him, but I was able to take a card and actually pull the files off of the card and search through it well after the fact. And I'd even actually gone to a few portrait shoots since then. I was actually able to pull off the file and send them something new. It's pretty dang cool. So, the reason I was able to do this is because my card was large. It was way more higher capacity than I had filled it. What happens with a memory card, and to just give you an analogy, you fill your memory card up to a certain point. And when you format that card, it actually doesn't delete everything. Most of the time, it writes and it continues to fill the card up. And once it gets to a certain point, it will then go back and it will start writing over old media. So what happens is if you have say a 64 gig card and you only shoot 16 gigs on it or something like that, right? And then you go to another shoot and you shoot 5 gigs and you shoot 2 gigs and you shoot 3 gigs and 2 gigs. Chances are there's a high likelihood that some of the files, if not all of the files that you shot originally, will still be there, even if you format it along the way. Now, this is not something you want to live by. This is a last case scenario. You do not want to depend on this or rely on this. It's just another safety net. I've heard this story so many times where someone gets their gear stolen. It gets their memory card container gets lost. In between switching cards out, they drop something or damage it or get it damaged by, water or something like that. That happens all the time. And so one of the main reasons why I shoot on large cards is that I put them in my camera at the start of the shoot or at the start of the day, and that's the last time I touch cards. I don't swap cards, I don't go in and out, I don't mix them up, I don't worry about anything. And when I get home, I take that card out and it's the only card that has media on it. I put it in my computer and I back up. All of the media goes off the card onto the computer, and it's a one-step process. Where if I have multiple, say 8 gigabyte or 16 gigabyte cards, that whole process becomes complicated. I've now got to separate things out. And I don't know about you guys, when I get home from a wedding or from a shoot, I'm exhausted and tired, and it's usually really late. I might get home at 2 or 3 in the morning if I had to drive, a couple hours out of town. So having one card, or at least one card per camera, simplifies the whole process. Now, if you have a camera like the 5D Mark III, which I'm using right now to film this episode, it has 2 card slots. So you can actually write a copy to each card at the same time. And I recommend having the exact same size card, a large card that's way more than what you would need. And now you have 2 hard copies right out of the get-go. So then when you go to your computer, you put it on your computer, and you're like the most safe ever. The issue of corruption, okay? So corruption is the reason or the argument of why you want to divide things in onto multiple cards. Now, I've shot hundreds of thousands of photos on my 5D Mark III. Never had a corrupt file. Now, what I have seen, I have heard stories of people having individual corrupt files and things like that. In extremely rare cases, the entire card will go down the shitter. Now, typically what happens is, from what I've seen and researched about corruption, because it's never happened to me, is individual files might be corrupt. And generally, everything else on the card is going to be fine, or you can use like recovery software, and it's really no big deal. Now, there are cases where SD cards and CF cards have failed. And one of the ways that you can get around this is, rather than buying a bunch of cards and swapping them out and risking all of the risks of losing and dropping and things getting stolen and everything getting divided along to different ways or formatting and all that kind of stuff, a way to get around that is to go ahead and buy good cards. They're not expensive these days. You can get like a 64 gig card for cheap. And basically cycle those out every so many formats. So I would say years or months or something like that, but if you're someone who shoots every single day, you're obviously going to need to cycle that out way earlier than someone who maybe shoots like once a week. In fact, almost 7 times less. So, the guy who shoots once a week only needs to replace his cards maybe every 5 years. He probably is going to, need a new format of card for his next camera before he's going to have to get rid of the SD card. But what you could do is cycle those cards out, get new cards in, and minimize your risk. Because the whole point of this whole thing is, you can't prevent someone coming up to you with a knife or gun and taking all your stuff, right? But what we can do is minimize risk. And in my opinion, having your cards dispersed over multiple places, having to swap them in and out, risking filling up your cards in the middle of a shot, or risking, losing data by formatting and writing over it, is way more of a reasonable, real-world thing that will probably happen to you compared to corruption, which is very rare. Now, there are some things that you can do to prevent losing your files. This is kind of off topic for memory cards, but keep your gear with you. If you're going to go into a restaurant, bring your gear physically into the restaurant. Even if it's not even just about the cards, it's about everything getting stolen too. If you go to a hotel, bring your gear into the hotel. Do not leave it out in the car. When you get home, and my wife will tell you this, the first thing I do, I don't talk to anybody, I don't say hello to anybody, I don't do anything. I take my cards, put them in my computer immediately, because you will forget. Something happens, maybe you shoot on a Friday night, you're gonna be out of town on Saturday, you wake up early Sunday, you forget, you gotta shoot Monday, you grab your cards, put it in your camera, format, boom, it's over, right? And if you have a larger card, chances are you're gonna be able to pull that off. But if you're shooting on smaller cards, that's just gonna be a no-go. Links to some software are in the description. I use Recurva, I don't really know how to pronounce it. It's a pretty good software that will pull raw files off of a card that's been formatted. I've used it several times. It works pretty good. So anyways, I hope this has been helpful. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys more of a small card kind of person or a large card kind of person? Thanks for watching. I also have a link description of the SD and CF cards that I use for my work. If you use the Amazon affiliate links, it really helps me out to keep producing these videos. It gives me a little incentive. I get a small kickback, and you guys have a great day.